Hi, I'm Olivia Coyce, and I will be presenting on comparing and contrasting ancient China and ancient India. So, what was ancient India? The first picture is Indus Valley. Now, picture in 3000 BC two cities, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Both of these cities began along the Indus River Valley. From archaeological digs, it has been found that these were very advanced and sophisticated cities, with irrigation systems, large thick walls, a riding system, urban centers, and major agricultural production, which they traded with civilizations such as southern Mesopotamia. However, after many years of thriving, the civilization came to an unknown ending. After that, several migrations of Indo-Europeans fled into India, otherwise known as Iranians. Iranians came from a region somewhere in between India and Europe, or either both. They spread throughout the Indus Valley and into the Ganges Valley. This is when trade really starts to flourish between India and the Roman Empire. And after lots of growth and centuries of being split into large and small provinces, India is ruled by the Gupta Empire, or otherwise known as India's Golden Age. So as you can see, both these pictures on the first side, it's comparing more of what India would have looked like in Indus Valley and before they really started trading with Europe. And on the other side is when the civilizations began to be really advanced, especially the Gupta Empire. So, ancient China was one of the oldest and longest lasting civilizations in history. Throughout most of China's history, it was ruled by powerful families called dynasties. The first dynasty was the Shang, and the last was the Qing, which we know as why China got its name. In earlier times, land was ruled by the feudal system, which is when lords or rich people owned all the lands and farmers tended to the fields in return for protection. In later years, many of the emperors had these officials who ran the cities, collected taxes, and enforced the laws. But in order to become an official, men had to pass an exam. So now that we know a little bit about both ancient China and India, we can discuss where both these cultures have some similarities. Both of these civilizations could be called river valley civilizations because they're both founded or originated along the banks of rivers. Because we still know very little about the Indus River Valley situation, much of our history is speculative. However, we do know that farmers made good use of the water from the rivers. They would plant seeds after the rivers had flooded the fields, as the water would make the soil very rich. In China, these rivers were more so a danger to the community, as they would often flood and kill many people, which is when Yu the Great really came into play, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But once the flooding was able to be controlled, this allowed growth and led to strengthening the Xia dynasty. So the government in both India and China was similar yet very different. China was subdivided into eras called dynasty, otherwise known as times when emperors would rule over a province, and once they resigned or passed away, the power would be passed down hereditarily to most often a male heir. This continues on till the ruling family is either overthrown by war, famine, or tribe who will take power next. However, before there were dynasties or centralized ruling, there was a feudal system, which is when people or provinces would pay the ruler in either taxes or obeying him for farmland and protection. However, the feudalism system came to an end in China during the Warring States period. Now, the more what pinpoints Chinese government was the mandate of heaven, which is when the gods appoint and support a leader, but would take away the mandate or remove a ruler who was corrupt. So, on the right-hand side of the slide, there is this cycle that shows kind of how the mandate of heaven really worked and how it wasn't so much about God or religion, but more so that once someone messed up, it was an excuse to get them out of power. India, however, functioned very differently. During the Gupta Empire, there was a vast amount of territory, and the emperor could not be present in all the places enforcing or ruling the spread out provinces. So this is what led to India's golden age, because it was a time of peace that allowed people to discover science, technology, art, literature, philosophy, and religion. But more so, it's just he couldn't be in all these different places at a time. So when they would come and collect their taxes, yes, people would say that they followed them. But as soon as the officers or emperor would left, the provinces would be able to go on as they were. Okay. Religion in ancient China was never a large focus or aspect of life for Chinese people. However, beginning in the Zhou dynasty, Confucianism became popular. Confucianism is less of a religion and more so a philosophy created around a Chinese college in a time of moral decay in China. Confucianism provided an outlet for Chinese society to return away from the war-ridden poor society and return to traditions. Religion in India was rather different. Buddhism was founded by a former prince who saw that there was much suffering in the world, but we can overcome it. Buddhism was a humble group who spread the Buddhist teaching, but in the Mauryan Empire, the emperor made it a state religion. Once Buddhism became a state religion, it spread quickly throughout India. Buddhism entered China during the Han Dynasty. Due to China's growing trade routes, such as the Silk Road, merchants spread Buddhism quickly and throughout East Asia. Buddhism in China was alienated at first, for China was set in its philosophical ways. However, when China began to fall into another political and societal chaos, it allowed Buddhism to step in and become an outlet. Lastly, the social structure in both these civilizations. In India, it was very strict. The caste system is a way of classifying people into groups when born. This is a Hindu concept that was used throughout history but is no longer today. In bullet points, you can see that there are 4 caste systems, the last not being counted because it's the untouchables. In China, social structure was very important as well. Confucian philosophy made it clear that to have a successful society, there also needed to be a strict social order. So there are 5 main groups, which are all being the biggest, top one is the ruling family. Nu Qua is a myth in China that there was this goddess laying next to a river molding humans out of clay because she was lonely. Now, the humans that she molded by hand became the emperors, the rich people, the higher class people, and then when she got tired but still wanted to make more people, she just swept a stick through the mud, and that became the lower class people or the poor people who weren't viewed as important in Chinese social structure. So that is my video.